Hey everyone, welcome back to the IHC Craft Room. Today is live number 20, the Sweetheart Season Series finale. This is our last one because today's Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day. I am going to be making a beautiful two-toned candle. It's going to be white on the bottom, red on top, and then we're going to put a white heart right on top of that. So we're going to get started right away because I'm excited to get this going. Okay, let's start with some candle maker math. So for today, we're going to be using these 8-ounce Madison glass jars. I'm going to be using 2 of them. We're targeting a 7% fragrance load. So that means that we are going to also be looking at our fragrance oil, strawberries and champagne, yum yums. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So for this candle, because we want those 2 really distinct different colors, and I really want to try hard to not cause them to bleed into each other, which is what has happened to me in the past. We're going to mix 2 different soy waxes today, which I've never done before. So we're going to do 226 grams of Freedom soy wax and then 226 grams of Pillar soy wax. And we're going to mix those together and then melt them together and mix in our 30 grams of fragrance oil, which will equal out a 7% fragrance load. Then we're going to start pouring in stages because we do want to keep that white and red wax separated while they're curing. But don't worry, I have a bunch ready here so we can do all the steps together. And last but not least, for our toppers, we're going to be doing 20 grams of Pillar soy wax. And I'm going to do that by putting them into this little heart mold that I got from the dollar store a couple of years ago. But actually, they were selling them this year as well. So, have a look if you haven't picked up yours. Check out your local dollar store for silicone molds. They're excellent. Okay, so that's what we're targeting today. So let's get started with that. We're going to go ahead and measure out our wax. So let me grab some stuff and we're going to get started. I'm going to cover my my scale with some parchment paper and paper towel, just so that when I get messy, which I always do, I don't make too much of a mess. I'm going to be using a pour pot because we're using the double boiler method today. So I'm going to turn on my scale and make sure it's at 0 when I have my pour pot in place. This is important because you don't want to add that bit of weight from your pour pot into your calculations. So always make sure you've zeroed it before you start measuring. Okay. So this is Freedom soy wax. We're going to start with 226 grams of that. So here we go. Oh, I forgot to put on my gloves. I'm going to put them on in a second. 226. Oh my God, get out of here. I got that on the first try. Woohoo! I'm going to go buy me right when I got excited, you see, it went up like a gram. I'm going to pretend that didn't happen because it totally ruined my moment. I was really excited to nail it in the first try. I really never do, so bum out. Why are you so... Okay. So that's 226 grams of Freedom soy wax. Now I'm going to zero my scale again. And I'm going to pour on top of that another 226 grams, but this time of Pillar wax. So here we go. Okay, that's 226. We'll see if it stays at 226. So we now have 226 grams of Freedom and 226 grams of Pillar. I'm going to actually mix them together so that they're all kind of blended in before we even put them in the double boiler. Now, I know you cannot see this, so I'm going to tell you what I can see. Pillar soy wax is a lot more yellow And Freedom soy wax is a lot more white. So you're definitely going to see a difference when you work with straight up pillar. Here we go. Into the hot water. Ooh, I think there might be a little bit too much water in my double boiler, so I got to keep an eye on that because it can get very aggressive very quickly. So yes, they are different colors. The pillar is yellow and the Freedom, just regular soy, is like a really bright white. So mixing them together, it's going to ultimately lean into that yellow territory of the pillar wax. So keep that in mind. If you want it to be like a true white, you're going to need to add something to that, whether it's a white color or, I don't know, I've never found white liquid dye anywhere, but there's definitely mica powder that you could use, and there's definitely got to be some kind of additives as well. But I don't particularly care if it's leaning into that creamy color, so no big deal for me. But if it bothers you, there are ways around it. Now, we are going to put straight up pillar wax for these ones. Again, not necessary because a heart shape doesn't really take too much. It doesn't need that much of the strength of pillar wax to pop it out. You could probably use I have used softer waxes like Freedom or Millennium in this type of mold. But because I am intending to thread the heart with the wick, I want it to be able to be strong enough to hold on when I use my little hand drill to drill a hole into the center of the heart. So definitely pillar wax for this as opposed to Freedom or a combination of both. I'm going to go straight pillar. And we only need a little bit to fill these out. So I'm going to just do 30 grams. Oh my gosh. It doesn't matter. 34 is fine. I'll be popping this into the microwave, which I'm probably going to do right now. But first, we're going to set up our vessels because once that is done melting, which will happen quickly, I'm going to need to get everything hopping, and it always ends up happening at the exact same time. So we're using about 30 to 30. Well, this is 34 grams of pillar soy wax. I'm going to pop that into the microwave in a minute, and we'll melt it and pour it in here. I will not be adding fragrance to the topper, and I will not be adding any color to it either. And that's just because I'm really not, it's not that big of a topper. So it's not going to impact the scent of my candle. And I don't want to go through the hoopla of like 3 or 4 or 5 drops of fragrance oil. Man, it's not a big deal. We don't need it. Hi there, Lori. Welcome from New York. Wow, how cool. Well, this is Mary from Ontario. And I hope you're enjoying. Well, we make a 2-tone candle today. So we're going to be using Stabilo 12 wicks, which have about it says on here 1.5 to 2 inch diameter. But I think that should be good enough for what we need today. Ooh, I need 2 wicks. I don't want this bent one. It's going to bother me. So you can be fixed another time. And we are going to use some wick stickums to stick them to the bottom of our vessel here. A wick stickum is basically just a double-sided sticker that is cut in a circular shape to mimic the bottom of a wick. That's all. Nothing fancy. You could use double-sided tape. You could use a hot glue gun if you have one, and put a little drop of hot glue. That's absolutely possible. Lots of people do it. I'm just going to clean the bottom of my wick a little bit because in the bag they get shaken about and the coating sometimes comes off and gets stuck to the bottom. And I would like to avoid any debris between the base of my wick and my wick stickum because I want them to bond really, really well. I'm going to keep an eye on this because this type of wax, these pellets, they melt very quickly. They are designed to be, this whole line from American Soy Organics, their Millennium, this Freedom, the Pillar. They also have a coconut, a ProFlex, and something else. I can't remember. I think a container. All of those are in these little pellet forms, these little teeny tiny pellets, and they melt super quickly in the microwave. So they're definitely designed for that. Feel free if you are doing a small batch of candles. You don't need to do a double boiler. You can totally pop them into the microwave like we're going to do with this pillar. Just make sure you're using a microwave safe vessel and that you protect your hands because these handles get very, very hot. Okay, so I'm going to eyeball the center here. you could totally buy a tool for the purpose of finding the center of your vessel, but I don't particularly care that much if they're a little crooked. Who cares? Some things I care a lot about and other things not so much. This is one of those things where I'm like, who cares? It's fine if it's a little crooked. Aren't we all? All right. It's melting very quickly. There's a lot of water in this saucepan, so I'm a little uncomfortable, which is why I keep looking over at it. I don't want the water to get too aggressive because it could hop right off the burner. I'm saying this because this has happened to me before. Okay, so I'm going to find my center here. Yeah, I'm happy with that. And I'll just push it down using, this is just a wood stick, but you can use anything you want. Just so that we make sure that it adheres well to the bottom of the vessel. I'm going to be using these two metal wick centering tools. So once we're done pouring the first half of our candle, I will thread the wick centering tool onto it to make sure that our wick gets set up really nice and straight. So we're going to go ahead and put this aside real quick, because now we're set up for our candles as soon as this is done. And something I forgot to mention, but I did do before we started, is I use some Windex to clean both of these glasses. And I highly recommend you do that with your jars, whether you wash them with soap and water or you use a glass cleaner like this. I highly recommend that you do that before you make your candles, because no matter where you store your vessels, they're for sure going to have some dust and debris. So here's a little pro tip for you, because you don't want any of that stuff floating around in your candle. It's no bueno. Okay, so while we wait for that to finish melting, I'm going to go pop this in the microwave real quick, and we're going to pour our hearts, because yippee, why not? So that is only 30 grams of fragrance oil, which is not a lot. Sorry, not fragrance oil, of wax, which is not a lot. So it's not going to take super long for it to melt. But I want to talk to you a little bit about why we combined these two different waxes together today, which again, as I said, this is my first time doing that for this project. I've mixed equal parts Pillar soy wax and Freedom soy wax. And the reason for that is because we're going for a layered look. I want to have that straight up white layer on the bottom half, and then a really crisp line and my red layer on top. And it's the crisp line that we're targeting that's going to be, something that we need to really focus on in terms of getting it right. And I'm hoping that this combination of Pillar and Freedom soy wax will give me that crisp line I'm going for, because Freedom soy wax is known for the way it attaches itself to the vessel, its adhesion, and Pillar soy wax is known for its firmness, and that's why it's great for use in pillar candles that are freestanding candles, or in like silicone molds when you're making a topper. Pillar soy wax is definitely the way you want to go, so that you don't lose any definition and you don't break anything when you're demolding. Let's see how we're doing over here. Okay, you're looking melty, but not quite yet. Let's get a little bit more melty. Another minute will do. Now, you definitely want to make sure that if you are going to combine melted wax with fragrance, like we are going to be doing today, you need to get your melted wax up to a temperature of approximately 185 degrees Fahrenheit. This is because of science. We want the molecules of the wax to open and be able to receive and bond with the molecules from the fragrance oil. And that happens around the 185 degree Fahrenheit mark. So keep that in mind, because that's what we're targeting. I'm going to keep an eye on that. The water's getting a little rowdy. I don't want to drop it too much, because then it's going to completely stop boiling. It's a whole thing. I don't want to talk about it. It's not a big deal. Let's move on. So as soon as that is done melting, we're going to go ahead and pour that bit of melted Pillar wax into the mold. Oh, yippee. It's ready. Let's see. Are you fully melted? Yes, you are. Okay. So I'm using a heat-safe glove that I picked up at Michael's Canada, but you can totally get them on Amazon. I highly recommend you pick one up. A pair is like 10 bucks, maybe 20. Oh, hey, whoa, that's very, very high. We're going to let that cool down a tiny bit. It stayed in the microwave too long. So for future reference, you want to go in smaller amounts of time than what I was doing, because I just put it in for a whole minute when I should have put it in for maybe 30 seconds or something. Oh, well, not a big deal. It'll cool down. And then we are going to go ahead and pour that into our molds. How are you doing? You're doing really well. You're melting nicely. Okay. So I am going to go ahead and pour. Let me move this out of the way for now. So again, I am not going to be adding any fragrance oil to this pillar soy wax. I'm just going to be pouring it into these molds. And these molds are quite deep. They're probably about a good inch to an inch and a half. And I don't want the topper to be that thick, because I kind of want to pour almost to a normal height candle. So I'm going to make the toppers a little bit more shallow. So instead of pouring all the way up, I'm going to maybe pour halfway. One of them I'll pour all the way, and then maybe the other two I'll do half. And that's, again, just to make it a little bit easier on myself when I'm threading it onto the candle, and also just so it's not like this huge heart on top. This water is like dancing. Like a whole bunch came flying out over here. Calm down. It's okay. I know you're excited for Valentine's Day. Keep it together. Okay, so while we wait for this to cool a little bit and for that to melt some more, let's talk a little bit about this fragrance oil today. We're using strawberries and champagne fragrance oil from Village Craft and Candle. I pick up most of my candle making supplies from Village Craft and Candle. I am an affiliate for them, which means if you use any of my links or you use my coupon code, I will receive a small commission from them at no extra cost to you. So help a sister out. I'd appreciate it. It helps me run my channel, which is no small thing. Let me tell you. So anyway, check it out. There's affiliate links in the description below, and you can also get 5% off at checkout for your first purchase. And that's if you use code IHC5 at checkout. So check that out. Let's see, how much temperature did you drop? Quite a lot, because it was really sky high, but it's still high. 214 is really high. I'm still going to pour it anyway, because why not? But anyway, strawberries and champagne fragrance oil from Village Craft and Candle. This fragrance oil is really pretty. It has the top fragrance notes of strawberry, banana, and peach skin, the mid notes of Cabernet grapes and green vines, and base notes of champagne bubble accord and musk. It's a really pretty fragrance. It has that sweetness of strawberry, but it has that tartness of the champagne as well. So check it out if you're interested in something like that, if that sounds delicious to you. And I'm going to go ahead and get ready to pour this in a second. Now, pillar soy wax is the kind of wax that is known to be much harder than any other container soy wax. It's designed for that purpose. It's made for things like freestanding candles, votive candles. Actually, maybe not votives. Yeah, probably votives. It is for freestanding candles, so it's known to be a harder wax. That's why it's so useful when you're using silicone molds, especially silicone molds that have more finicky or tiny pieces. Like, I always use this example because it's a really good one. The gingerbread man kind of outline, you'll seriously decapitate a brother if you're not careful. Like, you got to be using your pillar wax to avoid that from happening, because definitely all of the pieces like spider legs and baby chicks and bunny heads. There's been a lot of carnage over the couple of years that I've been running this channel, and I've learned that carnage can be minimized if you use pillar soy wax. So I highly recommend it. Okay, 195 is good enough. I'm going to go ahead and pour. So like I said, I'm going to do 1/2 Now, if you did want to put some fragrance oil in here, you could. But I just don't see the need. I'm going to pour one full. This one's full. And I have a little bit left, so let me pour a little bit more here. That's going to be the skinniest of all. So I've got a really, really thin one, a medium-sized one, and then a full-sized one. So that's great. It gives me a lot of options when the time comes that we're going to finalize our whole candle, our two-tone candle. So a little tip that I always mention, especially if you are a beginner candle maker, you're going to notice any of my live streams where I'm making candles, I'm always talking to beginners because candle making can be very intimidating. And I definitely enjoyed finding content that was directed at people like me who were just learning and wanting to understand things and what works and what doesn't work and stuff like that. Hey. We talked already. You're going to calm down, right? Didn't we say you were going to calm down? Okay, we're getting close. There's only a little bit left. Anyway, I'm always speaking to beginners in my live streams because it's very important to remember these things, get these kind of drilled into your head so that it becomes second nature. And the task I'm talking about is cleaning out your vessels as you go. This is not 100% clean. I'm going to wash it with some soap and water later. Wait, let me say that one more time because I slid all those words together. I'm going to be washing this with soap and water later because it will. Okay, you're over dramatic now. You see, you're over dramatic. You wanted attention. Are you feeling better now that I'm giving you my attention? Good, wonderful, beautiful. Okay, as I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted, you definitely still want to wash this so that you get the residue off. Otherwise, you could use it anyway, but always clean as you go because once that wax solidifies, it becomes a real pain to clean it up after. You'll either have to pop it back into the microwave to melt it again and then wipe it out, or you're going to end up using a heat gun to do it. But it's still added work that you can avoid by just taking care of it as you go. So a little tip from me to you. So this is already starting to solidify, this one over here, because it's so thin, right? And also, something to keep in mind when you are making your candles is if you are like me and you're making your candles in a cold room, I'm in my basement, and the ambient temperature down here is muy freddo. It's cold down here. So that means the air around my vessel and the vessel itself and the tabletop itself, these are all going to be pretty cold. They're going to be leaning in the direction of, woohoo, it's cold down here. And then our hot wax is going to come at the glass being like, yeah, well, I'm muy caliente, so let's party. And this could cause a lot of visual issues with your candles because of that temperature clash between the cold table, the cold vessel, and the warm wax. So there are ways to avoid that and to mitigate that, which you can totally do. I'm not going to do any of them today because I don't particularly care. I just want you to know so that if you care, you can do it. So what I would recommend first is to use a couple of pot holders underneath your vessels to separate that cold tabletop from your cold vessel. Then you're going to probably want to try to hit it with a heat gun. Use your heat gun to warm up the vessel from the outside and the inside, okay? Next, you can put a little piece of aluminum foil all the way around each of these vessels to trap that heat inside as well. All of those combined together will really help you if you're trying to mitigate that temperature clash. And the reason it's an issue is because the cold table, the cold exterior, it's going to start curing or, starting to solidify from the outside and the bottom moving inward. And the inside's going to stay liquid a lot longer because it's hot. So we definitely want to be careful of that. It's what would cause things like some cracking or some separation from the side of the vessel and some wet spots and things like that. None of the things I'm talking about will affect the smell or the scent throw of your candle. They are all just for the aesthetic look of your candle. If you're trying to learn to make your candles look really, really pretty and attractive, these are all little things you're going to want to tinker with and get to know. to make them really pretty. But from my perspective, I like them to be pretty, but I'm not concerned that they be perfect. I would like to have a really good scent throw. I want my scented candles to smell nice. You know what I mean? I want them to show me the money. We want strawberries and champagne when we light these candles. You know what I mean? So that's the thing I'm focused on. And today we're targeting a lower fragrance load than I normally use. We're targeting 7% today because I only have 30 grams of this oil, and that's why. So it's going to be a little bit less than I usually use, but it smells quite... The cold throw on this is quite strong. So I'm hopeful that that means that overall the fragrance itself is strong and will give me a good throw. All right, our wax has fully melted, but that doesn't mean it's ready yet. We're going to check the temperature. Remember, we want to get up to 185 degrees Fahrenheit before we mix in our fragrance oil. 186, wowzers, Penny. Could we be better or what? Get out of here. That was great. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to pull this off of the heat. Let's turn this off. Okay, beautiful. Now, safety first. I'm going to grab my pot holder here and put this here. Let me move you guys out of the way a little bit. Now, I'm going to take this off camera and put it on a countertop so that I don't have to worry about accidentally hitting it or nudging it or doing anything that's going to require me to go to the burn department. And we'll scoot you out of here too. Thank you so much. Wonderful. Okay, so let me get this. We're going to scoot you over too. Wonderful. All right, so let's get ourselves ready. Again, when you are candle making, and if this is your first time, the number one thing you need to know is you should always be prepared before you even start melting your wax. Do you see how I have everything set up around me? I have all of my temperature gun. I have my heat gun. I have everything I need within hand's reach, arm's reach. So that is definitely something I recommend that you do as well. And I use a lot of paper towels. So I have those handy. And I highly recommend you do that when you are working with fragrance oil. You need to be wearing rubber gloves because you do not want this fragrance oil to touch your hand or your skin directly. Very important. It is not skin safe. Very important. So always wear your gloves. Here we go. We're going to pour our 30 mils or grams of fragrance oil in. It is currently 4:28 p.m. And we are going to stir this fragrance oil for 3 whole minutes. Let me close this up and thank you for your service. Toodaloo to you. We're going to stir for 3 minutes. It's recommended that you stir fragrance oil for 2 to 3 minutes with soy wax. The reason for this is, as I mentioned earlier, you want the molecules of the wax and the fragrance oil to bond together. And the way we're going to help achieve that is by getting our fragrance oil to be melted all the way up to the temperature of 185 degrees Fahrenheit. We're going to mix in our fragrance oil and we are going to calmly and patiently stir for at least 2 to 3 minutes. I always make myself stir for 3 minutes because I figure that 1 extra minute could be the difference between awesome scent throw or kind of scent throw. I don't know if that's true, but hey, 1 more minute isn't going to hurt. And maybe it'll get me an even better scent throw than I even expected, you know? Oh, hi, Lori. That's so great. I'm so happy to hear that. I definitely think it's really intimidating when you're learning to make candles as a beginner. So I want you to feel free to ask any questions you have and feel free to make mistakes because I make them all the time, literally all the time. Practically every one of my videos has a mistake or an error that I did on a live stream. And I have taught myself to pivot. And I hope I am encouraging that on my viewers as well, because you don't have to be perfect to have a good time. You know what I'm saying? We don't have to be perfect. We can just have fun. Learn a little bit, make some beautiful candles. It's a good time over here. Oh, before I forget, I'm going to be taking the rest of this week off because this is the last of this season series. We're doing this Sweetheart season series. This is the finale. And I'm going to take a little break. I'm not going to be doing a live on Tuesday or on Thursday of this week. because I am preparing to launch my new series on Saturday, February the 21st. And that's going to be the Easter Extravaganza series. So I'm really pumped. I've come up with a whole bunch of new fun projects that are spring and Easter themed. Dot painting on Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to dot paint a whole bunch of fun stuff. On Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're going to be making some different wreaths. They're going to be festive. They're going to be springy. They're going to be so much fun. And then every Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're going to make candles. And I have so many cool ones planned out. I'm really excited. Lots of things I've never done before. Some things I've done before, but not exactly. So I'm really excited to try and do a whole bunch of fun stuff together. We're going to do some whipped wax candles. We're going to do some wood bowl candles. We're going to do so much fun stuff. So don't miss out. Make sure you show up every Saturday at 4, and we're going to make some candles together. It's going to be a blast. All right, it has now been 3 minutes of merry yapping and stirring. So it's time to pour. Now, remember that we want the bottom half of these candles to be white. And because of that, I am not putting any color. I will add the color to the remaining wax that we're going to pour next. So my plan is to pour to about the halfway mark on each of these vessels. Of course, you won't be able to see that because you're looking from a top, but you'll have to take my word for it. We're going to pour together, and then we are going to color this red, and we're going to pour another layer on some candles I pre-made for this. So let's start by pouring this one first. I'm going to go nice and slow. That feels like halfway to me, and we'll see if I can at least make them even. Okay. That looks even to me. Let me just wipe that a little bit. Beautiful. I'll put you aside for one quick second, and we're just going to get these set up and put these wick centering tools in place. These are going to help keep our wicks centered and straight up and down, which is what we really want. Okay, that's good. Let me move this over. Now, some of the candles I pre-made, one of these fell in to the wax and splashed the vessel. I'll show you actually. I was very disappointed. But it does happen, so no big deal. Again, nothing needs to be perfect. We're just trying to make some candles that smell really great, you know? Okay, so let's do the second section, which is going to be the red tops. So here are some white bottoms that I made earlier. Okay, not quite the halfway point, but close enough, still where we want to go. Now, what we're going to do is add some red candle dye to this remaining wax that we've already put our fragrance oil in. And these are very highly concentrated liquid dyes. It says right on here that you can use 7 to 14 drops per pound of wax. So I'm going to actually put, there's not that much wax in here. There's probably about 230 grams or so. So I'm 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I'm going to put 5, which is quite a lot because I do want it to be a vibrant red. Look how cool that looks. Okay. And we're going to stir this, but we don't need to stir for 3 minutes. When it comes to color, 30 seconds to a minute is sufficient. The reason why we were stirring for 3 minutes when it came to the fragrance oil and the wax is because, as I mentioned, you really want those wax molecules and the fragrance molecules to bond. They need to be the best of friends. And that doesn't happen unless they reach 185 degrees Fahrenheit, which we did achieve. So that's giving our fragrance the best option and possibility to bond well with the wax and be distributed well through the melted wax so that we get a nice even centro from the first light to the last light of our candle. That's the best we can hope for. And you definitely don't want to put your color in before your fragrance, because why? That red candle dye is going to block the fragrance oil from truly bonding well with the wax, like a blocker. And we really don't want that. So color is last, fragrance is first. And we've been stirring long enough. So I'm going to go ahead and pour. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm a big liar. Okay, so this is very important. And I'm glad I noticed right before I did something silly. The way we're going to make sure that we don't end up with this layer here melting and then getting a bleed onto our white layer. The way we're going to ensure we don't have that happen is we are going to be the most patient little children in the world, and we're going to let this drop down to approximately 129 to maybe 131 degrees Fahrenheit. So basically we're targeting 130. We don't want to pour before that. And when we're getting to 130, it's going to start like building up along the edges of the inside of this vessel because it's going to be so low in temperature that it's already starting to solidify. That's what we want. We want that nearly slushy stage because it will hopefully not disturb that white layer beneath, and we'll get that really nice crisp line that we're hoping for, right? So let's see what temperature we're at right now. 139. We're very close. So I'm just going to try to help it along. First of all, let's scoot you guys a little bit. Scoobity, scoot, scoot. Thank you. You too. Look at these. They're almost completely solidified. They're not ready to be toppers yet, though. You definitely want to let anything that you're making in a silicone mold, it can be popped out of the mold within about an hour, but you don't want to use it for the purpose that we're going to today unless it's solidified for at least 3 or 4 hours. Give it a chance to get firm before you try to put a drill through it. So we're not going to be using those ones. I've pre-made some and we'll use them instead. But right now, I'm just going to try to help this wax get a little bit more cooler so that we can pour this red layer next. So that's the number, like the things that I've learned in relation to making these really crisp color layers is this. You want to combine the pillar wax with the Freedom Soy wax. So you get the great benefits of both of those waxes working together to keep the layers crisp. You want to give your bottom layer at least 24 hours to 48 hours to fully cure. That's my personal recommendation. And then when you're ready to pour your colored layer on top, you want to make sure that after you've stirred everything and you've mixed in your fragrance oil at 185 degrees Fahrenheit so that it bonds really well with that melted wax, and then you put in your red dye and you stir it really well so that you get a really beautiful, vibrant color, you're going to wait for it to drop down to about 130 degrees Fahrenheit. We want to get to that cooler, slushy wax kind of temperature so that when we pour it, we're not going to melt that top layer of wax. It's going to stay cool as a cucumber, and our red wax is going to pour on top, and we're going to get that really nice, crisp line. That's the plan. Fingers crossed. We're going to see how it goes. Now, I have made kind of candles like this in the past, and Mary from the future in the replay is going to put one of them up in the corner. I think I have a Canada Day one I did a year or two ago, and I also did one for Memorial Day, if I'm not mistaken. So in the replay, I'll put those up in the corner. And though I did manage to make different colored layers in my wax, they didn't stay sharp. They blurred into each other. So that was a positive because the candles smelled wonderful and they were scented well and they threw the scent well. But unfortunately, the color aspect was not ideal. And I'm hoping to improve upon that today by doing this combination of Pillar and Freedom 50-50 split of my wax and this cooler pour temperature. And hopefully combined together, these will equal a better experience. All right, we're at 128 degrees Fahrenheit. So we are ready to pour. So let's get going. I'm going to take it easy. I can see a bit of slush and hang up on the edges of the inside here. So we are going to go slow. I don't even think I have enough for the second candle. it appears that I have highly miscalculated my maker math today. That's funny. That's fascinating, actually. So what that means is one of two things happened. Either I just didn't calculate it well, or this hang up inside of here is a lot more of the wax than I expected, and it's all sitting inside this vessel and not able to pour out. Or when I poured this half, I poured it higher than I needed to, and so I stole the red wax from here. Either way, it's not a big deal. The object of the game is we've got half and half, and I want to see if they bleed into each other. So we'll see how that turns out. Stay tuned. I'm going to actually pin a comment about how this turns out in the replay. So stay tuned for that in the future, because these ones are going to cure over the next couple of days, and we're going to see how they turn out. But for today, we're going to have a look at the candles that I pre-poured in this exact same way. I'm going to do a quick look at them, but first, let's go ahead and put our wick centering tools in here as well. We don't want that wick to now start tipping in one direction or the other after we got them nice and straight from layer number 1. We want to maintain that in layer number 2. All right, here we go. So I pre-poured these candles over the last few days, and as of right now, they have a beautiful, crisp line. I'm thrilled. These turned out exactly the way I had hoped they would, except for the fact that the actual red looks terrible. I don't think you can see that, but the way it adhered to the vessel wall is non mi piace. It's ugly. It looks very frosted. It almost looks like it has streaks throughout it. I'm not sure if you can see that because of the lights, but I'm highly surprised by the way that this turned out. And it tells me that if I was ever going to do this again, I would probably do the colored wax on the bottom and then do the red wax on top. Because I suspect the reason that we're seeing this streaking is because of how cold I had to pour that wax to make sure it wouldn't bleed and burn into this white layer. So the next time I try this, I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to reverse these. I'll do color on the bottom, white on top with this blend. And we're going to see how that turns out, because I feel like that would be a really good combo. It would do better for the color. Now, also keep in mind that we are using soy wax, and soy wax does have a tendency to frost. So don't worry about it. It is normal. It's not going to affect the scent throw of your candle at all. Frosting is just what soy wax do. And it's not a big deal. You don't have to stress about it. It's not going to affect the impact of your scent. It's just going to be impactful in terms of the coloring. That's all. So I made these little hearts a few days ago as well. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to drill a hole right through the center of these hearts like vicious, vicious animals. And then I'm going to thread it through this wick over here. And we're going to add them on top. Now, in order to make this topper stick to the top of our candles, we are going to hit this with a heat gun and melt that top layer. But even if I wasn't putting a topper, I would be melting the top layer of this, because I'm not sure if you can see, there's a lot of frosting. And there's some bubbling as well on this one. And this one has a really vibrant and noticeable crack all the way from side to side. Again, these are just aesthetic things. It will not impact the scent of your candle, but it does impact your impression of it when you look at it. So we're going to melt the top layer, make it completely liquid, and then we're going to thread these little hearts on top and call it a day. But not really, because I'm going to light them and we're going to burn them together too. So first of all, let's make our hearts ready to become one with the candle. And we're going to do that with this little hand drill that I picked up from Michael's Canada. It is for resin. So like people who make jewelry out of resin or whatever, they use these to drill, or keychains. Super useful for candle making. It works like a dream on wax. So definitely recommend picking up one of these, because it is super, super easy. And if you were going to be making a bunch of these, it would be like a total time saver. Now this, let me show you the difference in thickness of these 3 hearts. You can see I made them all a different thickness so that we could decide what makes the most sense. And you can also see that there's not a lot of real estate on the top of these candles. There's only about a half inch like that. So I'm probably going to use this skinny one as this and the middle-sized one, as opposed to this really thick one. So I'm going to let you hang out over here, and we're going to do this by, I'm going to try to eyeball the middle. I would say probably right here. Put a little notch on it. Boop, 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 boop. So I know where to put my drill. And now I'm going to drill straight through it just by spinning the drill like this. And I'm going to make sure that it's straight up and down so that it's not moving too much and we get a straight tunneling straight down. It's just, it's really going through this like butter. It's nothing. I'm already through to the other side. You see the little... We're already through to the other side. Super, super simple. And this does come with a bunch of different bits that are bigger and smaller. So if the size of the hole is too small for you, then you can totally get a bigger one or vice versa. But I know this to be the right size for these wicks. So cute, right? Oh, that's going to look so great. So I'm going to do the same thing with this guy. I'm going to try to eyeball the center, put a little notch there so I know where to rest this tool. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of a tip that I've learned from doing this. Because you're spinning it and because it's a screw, it's not going to spin perfectly straight, especially at the very beginning. That's why it really works in your favor if you're able to put a notch or at least a little groove in the spot where you really want that hole to be, so that when you start drilling, it doesn't start drilling off to the side of that, even though you think it's in the right spot. So try to always put a little notch in the exact spot you want, and you want to be straight up from the top and spin. It's super simple. I can't believe, like, I've done this in other ways, like by melting or by heating up a metal rod and slowly but surely drilling a hole through the heart. I do not recommend that. It works, but it is tedious AF and it takes forever. This is a $10 investment that's going to save a ton of your time. There we go. We got all the way through that as well. And I have this little paintbrush that I exclusively use for wiping wax away from drill entrances. It works very well. It's also really good at cleaning off the tool bit. Beautiful. You go away until we need you again. Merci for your services. All right, we're ready now to melt the top of each of these candles. We're going to liquefy the whole top layer. I don't need you, thank you. We're going to liquefy the whole top layer, and then we're going to go ahead and insert that nice, beautiful heart that we just drilled a beautiful hole through, which sounds terrible, but is going to look lovely. Don't worry. So I'm going to use my heat gun. Now, just a warning, this heat gun has experienced a traumatic accident in recent days. It fell off my table and cracked its skull wide open, but it's still working okay. I don't recommend you do this. I will replace it, but do as I say, not as I do. Be safe, kids, okay? Don't be silly. Pay attention. Okay, here we go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to melt the top layer of both of these candles, and we're going to try to get the whole top layer liquefied, and then we're going to drop one of each of these in here. Are you ready? This is going to be loud. Here we go. I want to pause because I want you to see what happens when all of those bubbles pop. It almost looks like a honeycomb. And I'm sure you probably can't see that, but it is so cool. It's such a fun little, it pops all of the bubbles at the same time and it looks like a honeycomb. Cute. All right, that is nice and melty. So I'm going to thread this through and drop it on top. Give it a little mush. Beautiful. Woohoo! So cute. We're going to do the same thing with this one. Now, I do want to point something out that I should have mentioned earlier. When you're using your heat gun to clear off the top layer here, if your primary focus is to make this get really, really smooth and pretty before you put your heart on, I highly recommend that you melt it and let it solidify completely first, and then melt it again to place your heart in. And the reason for that is because it will get all of the little cracks filled in, but you might not actually get all of them filled in because the heart's going to suck and get attached to it. So you're better off clearing off the entire level area and then melting again to place your heart on top so that everything stays beautifully smooth. All right. Also, keep in mind that you don't want to hit your wick with the heat gun while you're melting the top layer. And that's because these are coated in wax and they will start to wilt, and it'll be harder to thread the heart onto the wick if the wick has started to melt. So you can totally get it to solidify again, but just keep that in mind that you don't want to hit the wick directly with the heat gun to try to avoid that extra floopy possibility. All right. We've got a beautiful top layer happening here. And you can see how my wick has now started to lean to the side because I did hit it with the heat gun, but the top is still nice and firm. So I don't think I'll have a trouble, and I didn't. Boop. Wonderful. Now we're going to give that a second, this one in particular, a second to adhere. This one has already adhered. And we're going to do the Dairy Queen flip over to make sure that the topper stayed on in its place. And then we're going to go ahead and light these guys up. We're going to trim down the wick and we're going to light the candles and enjoy a little ambiance together. That one's still really warm. But you see? It stayed on top. Melting that top layer of wax really does act like a glue to bind the topper in place. So it's a really good way to make sure that your topper isn't going anywhere. Woohoo! All right, here we go. We have our two-tone candles with the super cute little heart toppers. I'm not loving the red. It's looking a little frosty. It's not as vibrant as I would have liked, but look at that beautiful crisp line. That worked out beautifully. I'm really thrilled about that. So my merry future project planning will be, if we want to do this again, we're going to start with the color on the bottom so we can pour it at a hotter temperature and avoid this streaky look. And then we'll pour the white one on top, which would probably avoid the streak altogether. We're going to see. We'll check that in the future. But for now, we made some really pretty strawberry and champagne scented candles in two tones using a mixture of custom wax, 50% split between Pillar Soy Wax and Freedom Soy Wax. So this is a very unique candle that I've never made before. I'm really excited. We're going to light it together. And you want to leave about a 1/4 inch of a wick on top. I'll show you if you can see. You see how small that is? Okay. We're going to go ahead and light these guys. Look at how fast these are curing. It's cold down here, guys. It's cold in the IHC Craft Room. Okay, let me move these guys out of the way a little bit. Scoot, scoot, scoot. Everybody be friends. Beautiful. These are fully cured. I would be comfortable probably taking them out of the mold if they're not hot anymore. They're still a little bit warm, so I would definitely not touch them yet. That means that the centers are still not fully solid, but probably in about a half an hour or so, you could demold this if you needed to use the mold again. So keep that in mind. But I would definitely not be trying to drill through these at least for another few hours. They're not quite strong enough for that, but they would be strong enough to demold. So that's another thing to keep in mind. All right, guys, we just made these beautiful two-tone soy candles together, and we're going to light them now. Let's go for it. Here we go. All right, let's see how these guys do together. So again, we have this beautiful strawberry and champagne fragrance oil that has so many fruity notes in it. It's so pretty. I'm really, really excited to see what the scent throw is going to be. I've never done a 7% fragrance load before, so I'm hopeful that it's not going to be too faint for me. I really do like a strong scent throw, which is why I generally do target about a 10% fragrance load most of the time when I am candle making. But this is a really unique candle for me. Again, I've never had a 50-50 wax blend before. And I really wanted to do that to try to do this anti-bleed barrier between the two colors. And that pillar wax is really strong. It has a stronger or a higher melt point as well. So it helps kind of like, I don't know, strengthen the freedom. And then the freedom helps it adhere to the glass. So together they have like beautiful benefits that have so far worked very, very well together to give that really beautiful crisp line between each of the colors of the candle. So I feel like this has gone really well. I'm going to see how this whole these candles both burn all the way down. I'm going to keep track of them. I want to keep an eye on that one line that we've got, that beautiful crisp line, because it might blur in the next couple of days. And I want to see if that will happen. If it doesn't happen, then I think we might have landed on the right mix when we want to try doing layering of colors. So I'll definitely try this again in a future project and see if flipping that color and keeping this 50-50 split is the way to go about getting that really beautiful crisp line. So stay tuned. We're going to see how that goes. I'm definitely always trying new things and experimenting here on the IHC Craft Room. I'm trying new fragrance oils, new vessels, new ways of doing things. It's always something new here. And so in that way, I'm always a beginner as well. But I've picked up a lot of experience along the way making all these fun things. So I hope you enjoyed making these beautiful two-tone red and white soy candles with me today. This is the finale of our Sweetheart Season series. Again, happy Valentine's Day. Thank you for spending a few minutes of it with me. I hope you enjoyed making these candles together. Stick around for another installment, actually, of an entirely new series. We're going to move on to the Easter Extravaganza series next Saturday at 4 p.m., where we're going to do a beautiful springy Easter kind of project together. I'm really excited. So I'm taking this week off to like prepare everything and get all my projects ready. We're going to have a blast. I've got weeks of new projects up ahead. So if you're interested in learning more about candle making, join me every Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we're going to do a new project together every week. And if you wanted to see some other projects that I've done in the past, I've got a ton of videos on my channel. Some of them in this live format where you get to hear me ramble for about an hour, and some that are a lot shorter. They're like 5 to 10 to 15 minutes long. I still ramble the whole time, but it's less time. So, you know, take a look at those, check those out. You'll learn a lot of cool stuff with me. You'll see all the mistakes that I make. You'll see all the times we did something different. I'm definitely learning all the time and having a great time doing it. And I hope you've been enjoying the ride with me. And, you know, if you are enjoying it, I'd really appreciate if you could hit that like button. It does help get me in front of more people, and consider telling a friend. It's always fun to hang out in the IHC Craft Room together. And I hope you join me again for future projects. Again, happy Valentine's Day. And don't forget to subscribe so that we can continue to get crafty together. Toodaloo.